This story will pull you into a world where reality loops, time shifts, and the familiar becomes unrecognizable. It's about noticing the small cracks before everything unravels, and discovering that sometimes the people we love are the ones trying to save us from ourselves. Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. It started with the number 47. It was carved into the underside of my toothbrush. My toothbrush. I found it Thursday night, when I dropped it onto the floor and noticed something scratched into the plastic with what looked like a pin. I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. The number wasn't there yesterday. I'm sure of it. I asked her about it. She just looked at me for a second too long and said, "Some things don't need explaining. You'll understand tomorrow." Then she went back to slicing cucumbers like we weren't living in a psychological thriller. That's when I remembered what she'd said 3 nights earlier. We'd just finished a movie. Something about dual identities and secret lives. When the credits rolled, she turned to me, dead serious, and said, "This Friday, I'm going to do something unreal." Not surprising. Not fun. Unreal. I had laughed, because that's what you do when someone you love says weird things. You give them the benefit of the doubt and hope it's just a bad week or a weird dream or a Pinterest phase. But after the toothbrush, after the number, I didn't laugh anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because of questions. What's the significance of 47? Why write it where only I could find it? Why did she change our Wi-Fi password yesterday and pretend she didn't? Friday morning, I woke up to silence. Her side of the bed was cold. Our kitchen smelled like burned toast and some kind of industrial glue. I stepped into the hallway and found this on the wall, written in her lipstick. "Don't answer the doorbell." That's it. No smiley face. No explanation. Just that message, like a warning in a dream you can't wake up from. At 8:13 a.m., someone rang the doorbell, and I answered it. I opened the door because I didn't believe the warning. Or maybe I just didn't believe her. I thought, for a moment, maybe she was pulling some kind of twisted prank. Something to shake up our dull routine. Some bizarre, artsy performance piece to post about later. She's into that kind of thing, ironically or not, I still don't know. But what I saw outside wasn't a prank. It was a man, mid-50s, suit too tight around the neck, holding a brown paper bag with grease stains. He didn't say hello. He didn't introduce himself. He just looked me up and down and said, "Has she told you yet?" I stared at him like he was in the wrong movie. Told me what? He ignored the question and took a step forward. I instinctively blocked the doorway. My heart was thumping now, but not from fear, from confusion. From that kind of creeping dread where your body knows something before your brain does. "She always does this," he muttered. "Always gets bored, always overdoes it. But this time's different. This time she picked you." I asked again louder, "Who are you?" He smiled like it physically hurt to do so, and said something I will never forget. "I'm what comes after unreal." Then he shoved the bag into my hands, turned around, and walked away. Just like that. Didn't look back. Got into a black Hyundai with no license plates and drove off like this was normal. Like this was Tuesday. I shut the door and stood in the hallway, holding the bag like it was going to explode. It was warm. It smelled like old fries and something metal. I almost didn't want to open it, but my curiosity was louder than my sense of danger. I set it on the kitchen table and peeled it open. Inside was a cheap burner phone, already powered on. One contact in the call log, a number labeled only as "you" after. And taped to the back of the phone was a Polaroid photo. It was a picture of me, asleep in bed. Taken from inside the room. Angle from the corner. Taken last night. I checked the windows. All locked. Front door dead-bolted. No sign of forced entry. My stomach twisted so hard I had to sit down. The photo was real. It wasn't edited. I was wearing the same shirt I wore to sleep. My mouth was slightly open in the photo. I had drooled. I never drool unless I take melatonin. And I had taken melatonin last night, which meant someone was in the room while I slept. And I hadn't noticed a thing. At that moment, I realized something that made my spine go cold. That lipstick warning on the wall, "Don't answer the doorbell," wasn't there when I went to bed. It was written while I was sleeping. And it wasn't written for me. It was written for whoever was in the house. I didn't call the number. Not right away. I just stared at the phone on the table, half expecting it to ring on its own. The Polaroid sat next to it, taunting me. My face frozen mid-sleep. I kept imagining footsteps in the room, just out of frame. A breath I didn't hear. A hand holding the camera inches from my face while I was unconscious. It took me 20 minutes to gather the nerve. When I finally pressed the number labeled you, after, my thumb hesitated over the call button for a full 10 seconds. But I hit it. I had to. It rang once, twice. Then the line picked up. But no one spoke. Instead, I heard a sound. Like static, but not random. It was rhythmic, almost like a ticking clock, except layered with something else. Breathing. Heavy, close breathing, like someone was exhaling directly into the microphone. Then came the voice. It wasn't mine, but it was trying to be. Same tone, same phrasing, but just slightly off. Like someone imitating me who hadn't quite perfected the timing. The voice said, "You shouldn't have opened the door. Now we both have to play." Then the line went dead. I dropped the phone. It slid off the table and landed face down on the floor. I backed away without picking it up. My heart was beating too fast to think straight. Who was trying to sound like me? Why? What did they mean by play? That's when I noticed the hallway again. The lipstick writing was gone. I know what you're thinking. You imagined it. I didn't. I saw it. Clear as day. Red smear, bold strokes, unmistakable words. Don't answer the doorbell. And now the wall was clean. No trace of lipstick. Just plain white paint. But here's what really sent me over the edge. I checked the security app for the hallway camera. The one we installed 6 months ago after a break-in on our street. I loaded the timeline for the night before. There was no footage. Not a blackout. Not an error. The entire day, Thursday, was missing. It skipped straight from Wednesday at 11:58 p.m. to Friday at 6:13 a.m. Like Thursday never existed. I didn't sleep Friday night. It wasn't just the photo, the phone call, or the missing footage. It was the feeling. Like my house had shifted somehow. Like the floor plan was the same, but the walls were holding something and they didn't used to. Every time I turned a corner, I expected to see her. Or worse, not her. I didn't hear from Tessa all day. Not a single text. Nothing on social. Her location was turned off, which she never does. It had been 36 hours since she told me she was going to do something unreal, and now I was stuck in some kind of unraveling dream, wide awake. Around 2:30 a.m. I heard a faint tapping sound above the bedroom ceiling. Not scratching, not creaking, tapping. Repetitive, measured, like someone drumming with a single finger. Tap, 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 pause. Then again. I froze in bed, eyes locked on the ceiling fan, which was still. The tapping wasn't mechanical. It was deliberate. We have an attic. It's the kind that's barely used. No insulation, just plywood, boxes of old clothes, and one busted suitcase full of expired Halloween decorations. There's a pull-down ladder in the hallway. I hadn't been up there in over a year. Maybe 2. When I stepped into the hallway, my stomach sank. The attic hatch was open. Not halfway. Not cracked. Fully open. Ladder down. Like it had been waiting. I stood there for at least 5 minutes, bare feet glued to the floorboards, breathing so shallow, I felt lightheaded. I told myself 100 rational things. Heat expansion. Poor latch. Earthquake tremor I didn't feel. But none of those things explain what I saw next. I climbed up. Not because I'm brave. Not even because I wanted to. I climbed because I needed the answer to be normal. I needed to find a squirrel or a leak or anything that belonged in a regular, explainable world. Instead, I found a chair. A single, wooden dining chair, perfectly centered under the attic bulb. The bulb was on. I didn't turn it on. And sitting on the chair, folded perfectly, was a pair of men's jeans. My size. My brand. With a receipt in the back pocket for a coffee I never bought at a cafe I'd never heard of, in a city I've never been to. The date on the receipt? Tomorrow. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the jeans from the attic like they were about to stand up and speak. The receipt was still in my hand. The timestamp was precise, 10:42 a.m. And the location was clear, Cafe Stilling, a place I had never heard of, in a town called Dentwood. Google Maps said it was real. 48 minutes away. Not a chain. No online menu. No reviews. Just a single photo on Street View showing a pale green awning and an old brick exterior. I left at 8:30 the next morning, Saturday, even though the receipt said the coffee had been bought on Sunday. I wasn't waiting another day. I needed answers. Or a reason to feel insane. Either outcome would be better than the limbo I was in. The drive was uneventful. Flat roads, mist on the highway, the kind of cold that clings to your sleeves. Dentwood was small, like blink and you miss it small. I passed a gas station, a hardware store, and then I saw it. The cafe. Same awning. Same bricks. It looked exactly like the receipt said it would. I parked across the street and walked in. It was quiet. 2 people at a corner table. A barista behind the counter, early 20s maybe, bleached eyebrows and chipped black nail polish. She didn't even look up when I stepped inside. I took a few slow steps toward the counter, the receipt balled in my fist like a security blanket. Before I could say anything, the barista said, "You came back fast." I froze. She still hadn't looked at me. She was pouring milk into a to-go cup, hands steady. I opened my mouth, but no words came. She finally glanced up, and her expression shifted. Not to shock or recognition, but to confusion. She tilted her head and squinted. "Wait, you're not wearing the same clothes." I stepped back. "Have we met?" She narrowed her eyes like she didn't believe the question was real. "Yeah, yesterday morning. You were wearing those paint-stained overalls. You got a black coffee, no lid. Paid cash. Didn't say much." She paused. "You asked me if I liked mazes. Remember that?" I shook my head slowly. "No, I've never been here." Her face went pale. She set the cup down. You said that too. Just like that. You said, "I've never been here." Then you winked and said, "You will." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My tongue felt glued to my teeth. I reached into my pocket and handed her the receipt. She looked at it, blinked, and whispered, "That's not possible." The timestamp was for tomorrow, but she clearly remembered seeing me yesterday. She turned the receipt over and gasped. There was something written on the back in black ink. It was in my handwriting. Just 4 words. "Don't go back home." I didn't drive straight home. I sat in the cafe parking lot for over an hour, reading the words on the back of that receipt over and over like they might change. "Don't go back home." Written in my own handwriting. I had no memory of writing it, but it was undeniably mine. Same sloppy loop in the G, same overly tall T's. I wish I'd listened. When I finally pulled into my driveway, just after noon, everything looked normal. Mailbox shut. Curtains drawn. My car still the only one there. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt it. That tension in the air, like a room that had just heard a secret. The front door clicked shut behind me. The house was quiet, too quiet. No fridge hum. No distant plumbing. Just the sound of my own heartbeat as I crept toward the living room. That's when I saw it. Someone was sitting on the couch, facing the television, perfectly still. I didn't recognize him at first. Same build as me. Same posture. Wearing my clothes. The green hoodie I'd lost months ago. The jeans I threw out last winter. His hair was slightly longer than mine, but the shape of his jaw, his shoulders, it was like seeing a cousin you forgot you had. I opened my mouth to speak, but he raised one finger without turning his head. A quiet, slow gesture. Like he already knew what I was about to say and didn't want to hear it. Then, without standing, he said, "You're early." My voice. Perfectly matched. But the tone was off. Flat. Too calm. I stepped back. My hand went to the doorknob. Locked. He turned his head, and I saw his face for the first time. It was mine. Almost. We stared at each other in a silence so dense it felt like it could shatter. The thing sitting on my couch, wearing my old hoodie, my old jeans, my exact face, tilted its head just slightly, like it was studying me through a reflection that didn't quite line up. He motioned for me to sit. I didn't move. He smiled. "You used to talk to yourself when you were nervous. You stopped after 8th grade. Remember why?" I didn't answer, but I remembered. Vividly. I'd been caught doing it in the locker room, and some kid named Matt filmed it and posted it online. I hadn't told anyone, not even Tessa. He continued. "You still flinch when toast pops up if the room's too quiet. You count light switches when you're anxious, but only in multiples of 4. You always check the back seat of the car, even in daylight." My throat tightened. "What are you?" He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and gave me a look I'll never forget, somewhere between pity and amusement. "Wrong question," he said. "The question is, why don't you remember?" Then he reached down, pulled something out from under the couch, and tossed it at my feet. It landed with a dull thud. A notebook. Black, spiral-bound, familiar. It was mine. Or at least, it looked like the one I used to keep by my bed to jot down dreams I could never remember by morning. "Go on," he said. Page 23. I picked it up, slowly, fingers trembling. When I flipped to the page, I saw handwriting. My handwriting, but it was neater. More controlled. It's simply read. Second cycle, break-in event occurs. He answers door. Doesn't remember first iteration. Subject becoming unstable. Next cycle, escalate contact. My knees buckled, and I sat down hard on the edge of the armchair across from him. I reread the page. Then the next one. And the next. They were all logs. Notes. Observations. Written in my hand, but describing me like I was some lab subject going through a test I never signed up for. I looked up. What cycle is this? He grinned. You're asking the right questions now. Then, in one smooth motion, he stood up and walked over to the hallway mirror. He tapped on the glass 3 times, deliberate, rhythmic, and the reflection changed. It didn't show us. It showed the living room. Empty, clean, morning light. The couch was different. A woman, Tessa, stood in the doorway, crying. Alone. I stood to look closer, and as I did, the image flickered and warped, like water in motion. Then it went black. Some of us stay here, he said behind me. Some of us don't. You wrote that, too. I turned, but he was gone. Just the couch. Empty. And in his place was a new receipt. Taped to the mirror. No cafe name. Just a single line. Final cycle. Return everything. I stood in front of the mirror for what felt like hours, trying to will the image to return. My own reflection had reappeared, but it looked wrong. Not like the copy, not like a stranger. It looked like me, before everything. Tired. Lost. Dimming. I held the new receipt in my hands. Final cycle. Return everything. I didn't know what everything meant, but something deep in my chest stirred. A memory maybe. A feeling. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about being watched or replaced. It was about forgetting. That's what it had taken from me. Not just time. Not just peace. It had taken parts of me. I went back to the attic first. The chair was gone. The jeans were gone. But in the corner, I found the suitcase. The one full of old Halloween decorations. But when I opened it, it wasn't full of plastic pumpkins or broken light strands anymore. It was full of notebooks. Black, spiral-bound. All mine. Hundreds of them. Each one labeled with a date and a number. Cycle 12. Cycle 19. Cycle 34. And each filled with my handwriting. My thoughts. My attempts to break out. My failures. Over and over again. And near the bottom, one notebook stood out. Red spiral. Newer. Labeled only, her. Inside, it was different. No logs. No tests. Just pages and pages of little things. Notes about her favorite tea. The way she always tapped her fingers when nervous. The names she wanted to give our kids. A list of jokes that had once made her laugh when she couldn't sleep. Things I had forgotten. Things I wasn't supposed to forget. That's when I understood. This wasn't a punishment. It was a reset. A loop I had chosen. To fix something. To remember why I chose her. Somewhere along the line, I had stopped seeing her. Stopped listening. Lost in routine. Distracted. Cold. She had tried everything, and I still didn't hear her. Until she broke the loop. This Friday, I'm going to do something unreal. She wasn't warning me. She was waking me up. I took the notebook downstairs. I sat in the living room and read it all. Every word. And when I finished, the house felt different. Like it had taken a breath it hadn't dared to take in a long time. That's when the front door opened. It was her. Tessa. She stepped in like she'd only gone out for a walk. Same eyes. Same tired smile. She looked at me like she wasn't sure what version of me she'd find. I stood up, held out the red notebook. I remember, I said. She blinked. Her mouth opened a little. What do you mean? I didn't the first time, or the 10th. But I do now. I remember you. Not just the big stuff. The small stuff. The stuff that matters. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she nodded slowly. No words. Just a single, quiet nod. I walked over, took her hand, and for the first time in what felt like 100 lifetimes, I didn't feel like a stranger in my own house. The mirror in the hallway cracked down the center later that night. Not shattered. Just a thin line, like a seal breaking.